Hello everyone, this is Dav Edward, and this is a impromptu Tachyon tutorial for very basic modding. Forgive me if I stammer quite a fair bit. This is going to be try to take in one take here. This is going to just be covering some of the most basic things that I've been asked about over and over and over again in the Tachyon channel. This is going to start with just the first importing a custom ship of your own, and we'll continue from there. If there's any questions, put them in the comments below, or I would strongly suggest going to the Tachyon Discord, which I'll be sure to include a link in the description below. So for starters here, everybody always seems to be asking me, how do you make custom ships in the game? We'll first go about this. I'm just going to bring my computer screen up here. First, just find the asset of what you're looking for. Preferably, you're always looking for a 2D top-down view of a ship. I thought that this one was pretty good right here. You can just go around and find whatever you think is the most nice looking that you can find for the game, and you can work around with that. So first of all, let's give this a much better name. I'm going to call it the Xeon. I'm going to copy that and put it into the client folder here. And we need to stick it into ships. And I just realized, since this is a completely fresh copy, I'm going to actually turn off the music so that you don't hear two copies of the same music playing twice. So, 1 second. Here we are. So, this is going to be a completely fresh copy, so I'm going to pop them open here. And don't worry folks, I'm going to make this full screen so you're not squinting. Yes, thanks for telling me, NVIDIA. Any case, so first step is go into the ship editor here. Any files that you put into that folder that I was showing earlier, I'll pop that open again just to show folks. So I put this into data, ships. Right here is where you have all of your ship sprites. So I went ahead and I added my Xeon in there somewhere. Where is he even? There he is. So there's the Xeon. So as long as it's in this folder before you launch the game, it'll appear in this right list here. So we just have to scroll through until we find him. There's the Xeon. So there's our ship. First thing we need to figure out is how big we actually need this ship to be. At the moment, this is a ginormous ship. If I were to put in our numbers here just to find out how many cells we made this guy. I'm gonna try 8x8 first. Yeah, it was pretty accurate with the height. So it is 8 tall, and I'm guessing probably 12 wide. 13 wide. 14 wide. So this is a huge ship. If we were to fill this with room cells, I would call this a mothership, based on the incredible size. So, first thing we would probably want to do is let's resize our ship substantially. So to do that, we would actually have to leave the game and edit the ship size. So we'll just exit the game out. Open it with your favorite editor. In my case, I like to use paint.net just because it's so simple. And let's do a resize here. So let's resize this to, let's start with 50% of its original size. And then save. And I'm just going to actually leave this program open because we're probably going to be editing it numerous times here. So back into the game again. Ship editor. Go back to our ship again. Here's the Xeon. Way better. This is more of a like cruiser type size here. Let's see how many rooms we made this guy. I'm gonna first guess at 5x5. I probably overdid it a little bit. I would say we want it to be about a 5x5 size ship or so. So I'm gonna try one more time here. I'm gonna undo that. Image resize. Probably want it 60% then. Ship editor. Now let's try our guy out here. Ah, yeah, there we go. I'd actually make it a little bit wider because you need to have the ship bigger than the cells of your rooms. Otherwise, you're going to have rooms that kind of look like they're sticking out of the ship. So I guess we're going to have to make this closer to probably 65 or 63% of the original size. This is the tedious part of the editing process, is just getting the sizes right. I'm going to try 64. 64 sounds pretty close. This is going to be a minimal effort tutorial, just because I'm sure you can figure out how to do the steps over and over again until you get everything just right, but I'm just going to cover some very basic stuff here. Probably 7x5 now. That's pretty darn close, so let's start making the basics of our ship here. So, first of all, you want to set the width and height of your ship, and sorry, it'll be defined by this gray square here. These are block cells. They have no value to the ship. All they count for is if somebody was to fly against your ship, where would they collide with it? So for example, I would probably want to turn that one into space because there's no physical ship in the way. Maybe that one too. Not even, but these ones I definitely want to leave blocked. And you try your best to repeat throughout your ship to make it as close as possible. Then you choose room cells for actual rooms in the ship, which naturally we would want rooms along here, 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 and here. But if you want to be clever with your design here, you could probably deliberately leave certain rooms out. Like say, for example, for some strange reason our ship had nothing in the middle. Whatever you want to do to be creative here. I'm not going to be very fancy here. I'll leave that up to your creative minds. And you basically want to make sure that, first of all, you have rooms in your ship. Always keep in mind what kind of systems you're going to be sticking into this thing. So for example, a pilot's chair is going to be too wide. So, at least by default. So if I was to stick a pilot's chair in here, one difficult thing about this ship is, due to the size I chose, you see it's going to be 3 cells tall, so it's going to be a little of a funny looking ship. You can certainly go along with it. You can make the weirdest shapes out there if you ever desire. Just go along with it. In my case, since this is what I'm going to stick with, I'm just going to design it so that I put the walls like this, so that the front of the ship supports two cellars, or sorry, two cellars along the front. And let's see, how well can I divvy up this ship here? Not too bad so far. So we only have a bit of wasted space here, but those would make good airlocks. So there we go. So I'm going to choose that as my basic layout. Most important thing of all, doors. Make sure people can get in and out of the ship, both on the exterior and interior. So for this, I'm going to make sure that I have doors here, here, here. Preferably like to make it look reasonably nice here, so I'm gonna try that. I'd say that looks pretty good. So we have exterior doors there, there, and there, so people can get into the ship from the back or the front. We can make this as a pilot's chair. We could probably make these small weapons. We have space here for a hyperdrive, the engines, a shield generator, and a 2x2 system of their choice, and a lot of small 2x2 rooms. This may not be ideal in, say, the co-op, but maybe the MMO. Depends on what kind of systems you have available for your ship. So I'm going to also go up here and make sure I give it some sensible amount of health. So let's say that this is a cruiser. So cruisers usually have about 50 health or so. Just use your best judgment when you're going along with this. If you ever make a mistake, you can always come back and edit it. I'll make this a human ship. And down here, ship class. Ship class determines how big the ship is cargo-wise, so how much cargo the ship can hold. but also how heavy the ship is. So if you have a light cruiser, it's going to have a very small cargo space, but it's going to be very light. So say like a 2-power engine is actually going to be able to make that thing move pretty fast. If you chose something ginormous like a station, it will never move at all. At least most stations are so heavy you can't move them. If you chose a platform, same thing, it's probably going to be too heavy for you to actually move it. If you chose a mothership, it would be so heavy that you can move it, but you're going to have to put a very powerful engine in there to move the thing. So you just cycle through until you find the one you want. So there's Light Scout, which is the fastest, Heavy Scout, Interceptor, Cruiser, Battleship. Asteroid is a special class. Never make a ship out of this unless you plan on it to be indestructible. Most systems will assume if it's a ship class asteroid, it's meant to be blown up to get scrap out of it. Trader, platform, corvette, carrier, dropship, transport, freighter, fighter, bomber, frigate, dreadnought, creature. Creature's another special one. It's for usually NPCs, but you could make a PC creature, I suppose. And unknown is generally ill-advised because it's not going to assign any proper values to the ship. So I'm going to say that this thing is probably a cruiser. Go ahead and hit the save button. This is why I said name the file in advance. It just makes it so much nicer that it'll just automatically save it as its own name. And I almost forgot, let's give this thing some sort of a shield. You just cycle through until you find a shield that seems to best fit your ship. That one seems ideal for me. I'm going to save that again. And one other tidbit I'm going to show you is one popular issue that a lot of people come across is if the ship isn't properly centered. So in this case, see how the bottom of my ship here has more ship sticking out than up here. It's not terribly off-center, but it is off-center. Or say you wanted to bump your room cells backwards a bit. So right now you wanted to push it either farther towards the front or farther towards the back. I'm going to go ahead and save this just for reference. To adjust that, all you do is in your actual ship editor, or in your actual image editor, just simply go in, adjust your canvas size, and this is one of the reasons I like Paint.net is there's an anchor here. If I wanted to, say, nudge my ship towards the left to try to push the rooms closer towards the front, just say anchor the ship on the left center, and increase the width of the canvas, so I'm just going to increase it to something really obvious here. This is clearly not how far you'd want it to be, but I want to make sure that you as the viewers can see what's happening here. So like that. So I add this big white chunk here to the image. I'm just going to select it and erase it. So now I just have this blank white space here, or blank space here. Going to relaunch the game again. Ship editor. We find our guinea pig ship here, the Xeon. I'm going to load in the model I made. And you can see, because I added all that white space in the front of the ship, it shoved everything towards the right. So now it's all the way out here. The butt of the ship has moved. So if you ever find that your ship's not quite right where you want it to be, just add blank space to nudge your image left or right to get the rooms aligned to where you want them. I'm going to undo that just because where I had it before was probably better, but just so that people know in advance. Space, if I didn't properly describe that, is where you can click to make a cell completely empty, so people can fly right through it. As of version, I better double check again, but as of one of the most recent versions, if you hold down the C button, it'll actually show you what the room cell numbers are. This will come in handy if you are doing more advanced modding with events. So say you wanted to write an event that said, install a system onto the ship directly into cell 2-1. Well, 2-1 is right here. So if I tried to install a system here, it would try to take up these two spaces if it was a 2x1 system. If I wanted to install into the whole square here, I want 2x0, and so forth. I'll go ahead and exit this out. So this is as of Tachyon version A0819. A0818 is the same tutorial, it's just the C button doesn't work. I'm going to undo that one little change I made here. And I'll show you the next step here. So we're going to go in one more time, just make sure everything's the way we want it. So ship editor. There's a Xeon. If I load it up, it is the way I want it to look. I have doors on the outside, I have everything I need on the inside. Good. So we've saved it, we chose its health, we have the size, we've chosen where the doors and walls go, we chose what the shield is, we chose what race, and we chose what ship class. Now to actually get it into the game. By far the easiest way to get it into the game is by using the dev shipyard, which I'll show you next. Regardless, we need to take that model we just created. So while you're in the client here, go to Data, Models, and the ship that you just made is right here. So it's going to be called whatever you named it.shp. You want to take that and copy it and bring it over to the server now. So into the server, Models, Ships, and then you just paste them in there. So now it's in there. I'm going to go ahead and launch my server here for the very first time. And I'll show you the next important part. So, if you're starting with a clean server or you don't care about resetting your server, great. The easiest way to try to import your ship is to actually just use the dev shipyard. The easiest way of enabling the dev shipyard is by going into your server files here, go to WorldGen, Events, and I believe it's in D31 Events. Normally I use Visual Studio Code Editor, but just to not confuse people, just open the file with your favorite editor of choice. In my case, it is Notepad++ here. And you're looking for a event that's commented out that says about installing the dev shipyard. It's in here somewhere. Yeah, here we go. So as of the time of this recording, if you open d31events.xml, go down to line 125, you'll see this event that says Event Param adds system model to cargo shipyard. And it's currently commented out. You can tell because it has this little bracket, exclamation mark, dash dash, dash dash, bracket, right? So just take those out. Like so. Save your event file. And then go back to your server here. We're going to have to exit it because it won't notice the change we made. I'm going to go and relaunch the server. And we need to reset it because this is part of the world generation. So we're going to say reset. It's going to do its little countdown there. And while we're waiting anyways, I'm going to go ahead and launch the game. Okay, it made a new universe. I'm going to launch our game. Start game, localhost. Make any name you want. Nothing's really important if you're just making a local system here. I'm going to create a new account. Log in. And you're in the game like you would normally expect. I'm going to go ahead and skip the tutorial here. And we're not going to actually be playing the game, we're going to be using the dev shipyard, like I was speaking of a moment ago. So to get use of the dev shipyard, just simply go in, cargo. We have a new system called dev shipyard. That's what happened when we edited that file earlier. I'm going to hit install, just stick it somewhere like there. Walk over to it and use it just like you would a ship store. So I'm going to stand on it and press spacebar or hit the middle button there. Alright, installation progress, just give it a few seconds. And there we are. So, first we need to find our system. So we chose human, so we just need to find the Xeon in the list. Xeon. There he is. So Xeon. There's that ship I made. And you can now do one of two things. You can just import the model as is, just to make sure it looks right. Or you can fill it in and see if everything works the way you were hoping so. So I'm just going to go ahead and call this Xeon again. And let's just stick in all the basic stuff here. So, Command Console. You always click the top left corner of the cell you're trying to put something in. Basic shields, I guess I'll stick in here. Reactor, put right there. Sensors. Let's just get all the bare minimums here. So oxygen room, I may as well put it right here. Door control, may as well put there. Mid bay, right there. Hyperdrive. Engines. And of course, we would want a weapons control. If only I could find it. Weapons control. I think it's under other, but I keep missing it. Ah, there they are. They're under missile weapons for some reason. So, weapons control. So that would be at least the bare minimums of a ship there. So now that we have it the way we want, we're going to hit create. Speaking of the health, right, the health in the dev shipyard takes the default value of what you provided in the ship editor. If you go with the event method, you can have way more control over it. So I'm going to exit out, and if I look next to me, voila, there's a new ship there. I'm going to go ahead and just walk over there. And if I zoom out far enough, there's my Xeon. So you can just walk over. If you want to, you can take over the ship, you can fly it around, use it exactly however you please. Voila! So that's your new ship in the game. One other advantage of this is if you're already having a running game, now that the ship has been created, you can actually import it into an existing game. There's numerous different ways of doing this, but I'm going to show you the top two methods. So the first method is just simply exit your game. In the server, make sure you tell it to exit. And go through the server files. So I'm going to go to server, database, ships. And it stands out like a sore thumb because it doesn't have a hash name, it has a real name. So you see Human Cruiser L2 Xeon. This is the ship that I just created. It has everything in here, including the crew, which is me. If you want to, you just delete any of the files that are not relevant to what you want. So if you want to make sure that your ship is a blank slate, just delete the crew and it'll be an empty ship. Data.dat, it contains all the information about the layout, which is that new model you created. I call it the Xeon in the ship editor. The cells data describes what the ship's interior looks like, where all of the items are, its name, health, like current health, as well as what its maximum health is, how many shields it currently has open, which were none, its ammo, drones, the current oxygen on the ship, stored energy for jumping around. I think that's one is for weapon charge. I can't quite remember. And that one's oh, this is the one I think for local jump. I think this is one for the hyper jump. I never actually tried editing those files. Sorry. Oh, there's the hyperdrive jump right there. So yeah, I don't have 100% knowledge as to which ones these are, but no worries. Usually you don't care about editing these, they'll change themselves anyways within seconds of using the ship. Cloak energy. Safe zone defines whether or not the ship is indestructible. If it's marked as safe zone equals 1, the ship is impossible to destroy. No matter how much it's shot at, it won't die, and anybody on the ship is also indestructible, at least in regards to weapons fire being shot at the ship from outside. Transparent cells tries to make the ship partially invisible, I believe. I've never actually used that setting yet. Doors auto-close just simply tells the doors if they should close again once somebody walks through them. Free doors means if you are not crew, if it'll still let people just freely walk in and out of the ship without having to be part of the crew. Free O2 means anybody that stands in the oxygen room can actually get their oxygen replenished whether or not they're crew. Free med, same thing, can they use the med bay without actually being crew? Free sensors, can they use the sensors without being crew? Hack alert, will the ship crew be alerted if somebody starts hacking the ship? Boarding alert, will the crew be alerted if somebody tries to board the ship? How much scrap the ship is currently holding on to? Rarity affects if your ship will show up in shops. If it's rarity 100, it will never show up in shops. The higher the rarity value, the less likely it is to show up in a shop. So if I say it's a rarity 1, if I say it's just, there we go, rarity 1, it's going to be all over the place. If I say it's rarity 99, there is a incredibly rare chance that anybody's ever going to find this thing. Most ships, I believe, are around like the 60 range for rarity. I'm going to go ahead and just leave that as 100, just because, you know what, I don't want my ship to show up in shops. Self-defense is a option where if you're in the game and you type in /ship DEF, it'll actually tell your ship to attack anybody that attacks it, as long as you're not on the ship. And lastly, weapons order, don't worry about changing that. That just defines on the ship what order you put your weapons in, so that when you rearrange them, it'll remember next time you get on your ship. For the other files here, events just simply tracks how many times you've jumped and such. You can always safely delete that file, that one doesn't matter. EXP, if I remember right, yeah, is what systems it's been in before. I'm going to go ahead and remove that one too, because it's not important. Systems. This is where it's holding on to the information as to what systems I installed and where. So you remember I put piloting, shields, reactor, sensors, oxygen, outdoor control, medical, hyperdrive, engines, basic laser, and weapons control. Well, all of that information about where they are on the ship has been all stuck in here. That's how it remembers. And last but not least, trav.dat just remembers what was the path of sectors you visited. So if I decided to make a circle around spawn, it will remember all the sectors that I made to go in that circle. It's also not important, so you can just go ahead and delete them. So that just leaves us now with our ship. So if you want to import this into a live game, I'm going to go ahead and do so right now. I'm going to abuse the same server just so you can see what's happening here. This is already being in use by our current game. So if I were to copy this and give it a new name, so I'm going to call it Davs Xeon. Go into it. I'm going to edit its data.dat to give it a unique name so you can tell. So Davs Xeon. So we now have the folder. It's called davs_Xeon. I'm going to copy that name. And this is what is called the live server editing method. So this is without resetting the world data. We're just going to forcefully put our ship into the world. I'm going to then go to database, universe, and here there will be a folder for every single sector. 1231 is spawn, so I'm going to go in there. And there's a file called ships.dat. I'm going to go in there. And you can even see there's our existing ship right there. And one of these is the Falcon. I don't remember which. I'm going to go ahead and spit out my name here. So this is the folder name of your ship, not the ship's name. The first value here is the X of where it is in the sector. This is the Y of where it's in the sector. I can cheat by just simply copying this and slightly editing the values. So I'm just going to nudge this down by 3, and I'll make this 5. So this will make it slightly higher and towards the left. I'm going to save it. And if I go and relaunch the game, Davs Xeon is going to turn up. So this is great if you're trying to put this in an existing server. You just want to plunk your ship down where a game is already running. So I'm going to launch the server again. Pop my game back open. Start game. Of course, this also works when you're trying to copy it into a different server. Just bear in mind you have to make sure you copy the model and that ship folder data. So if I'm now in the Xeon and I take a look, there should be a Davs Xeon in here somewhere. Unless I made a mistake here. Ooh, yep, I did make a mistake, and I know what I did. So it didn't show up because I forgot to edit another file that's really important. That was my bad. My apologies, let's try that again. Data. Oops, server, database. Just gotta make sure that it's still in there. It is. Yep, it's still there. There is one other file you have to edit. I completely forgot about that one. And I have to remember where it was. There is one more file you need to edit in the database to convince the server that your thing is there. Not players. Universe. Start location, universe.map, threats. We already did ships. Oh, it undid it. Alright, let's just put that back in again. This is where I make mistakes. Let's try this again. So you can see how those match there. I'm doing the same thing here. Just gonna, again, give these a different value so they're not right on top of another ship already. But I am forgetting to edit something very important. It's not players, it's not NPCs. What am I forgetting here? Pretty sure it's not universe.map. Nope. Should it be level loaders? Nope. Nope. Oh boy, this is where I get puzzled. One moment. We already have ships.dat open. I don't need to edit players, I don't need to edit the NPCs or the debris. What am I forgetting? Should already be in here. Yep. The model's in. I imported the ship directly into the database. By my accounts, it should turn up. Let us try that again. Maybe I made a mistake somewhere. It made no complaints. Let's try this again. This is what happens when you do one take, people. Yep, I've done a whoop somewhere and I don't know why. Server. Database. Universe. That's the ships.dat right there. Ships. I am very puzzled. I did this before, now I can't remember. I'm forgetting something, and what's happening is the game is realizing that I have a file where it doesn't belong and is deleting it because it's not defined correctly. Jeepers creepers, what did I do wrong? I'm almost certain the exp.dat is not required, but maybe I'm making a mistake here. I'll try putting that back in. Events shouldn't matter. I'm also going to put the crew one back in just in case. I don't believe this is what's wrong, but you know what? When you're running out of ideas, try everything. No, I am doing something wrong and I do not know what I'm doing wrong. Yeah, that just keeps track of the players, variables, ships themselves. Underscores are definitely allowed. Oh, whoops. Oh. I made a really dumb mistake. I changed the layout, not the name value. Whoops. Dav. Xeon, and the layout is just Xeon. No wonder it didn't like me. Alrighty, my bad. That is what I did wrong. Okay, let me recap, sorry. So, you spawned the ship using the dev shipyard. You went into ships. You copy it. Imagine you pasted it into another server. Rename the folder to whatever you'd like to call it. This is just for your own personal reference. The server doesn't care. So I made it as davs Xeon. I opened the data.dat file. Make sure you leave layout alone and change the name. That's where I made my mistake. You save it. You then go to the server, launch it. I am not a morning person. Any case, so with that sorted out, go to start game, go back in. And huzzah, there it is. This is what happens when the dragon derps. So, there's Dav Xeon right there. If I take a look at it with the sensors, you can see that there he is. All the same systems, exactly how I designed it, but now it's there, and you can import this into any server you'd like. Just make sure that it has the same models and everything else, and you're good to go. The other method of importing your ship, which I will not go into today because it's a bit too complicated, is by using event files themselves. I'm just going to say no to all these files that got changed, so you can see it's just happily accepted all these. So, don't need that, don't need that, don't need that. Alrighty, the last way you can do it, and this is more complicated, is you go into the server, world gen, events, and you create your own new event file with an XML file here. And you have to somehow tie it in, so usually you would have to edit worldgen.xml. And in here, as I said, I'm only going over this briefly. If you don't know how to do this kind of stuff, you may want to go into further investigation or perhaps another tutorial sometime. You add another chain event to the new event you made, which would be a spawn ship event. And then in your new file, I'm just going to borrow D31 as an example here. You create a spawn ship event like this. So you put the name in there to where you change it from WorldGen, and then you say add ship model, and you put this and you would rename this to your ship. Make sure you're making this as a new file. Don't edit the existing files. So I'd make it a Xeon. I would call it whatever I want. So like davs Xeon is position, and as long as you have this event trigger from something in a sector that's already there, so say like spawn, it'll spawn a ship. If it just says ship model, like that, it's going to spawn a empty ship. So it's just your ship with no systems in it. If you wanted to force it to spawn it with all your systems exactly as you designed them, you would go to your database here, ships, you copy this out, go into world gen ships, put it in here, and you'd call this a gen ship model. Davs Xeon. The difference between the two, gen ship model, like that, and you're naming the folder inside world gen ships, will generate the ship exactly as how you designed it, down to a T, to the way you imported it. This is the deprecated way of doing it. The developer himself prefers if you would just use normal ship model, and then later on do a modify ship event, and then stick in all of your systems as you desire using a modify ship event. Again, I will not go into that today, but that's the last way of doing it. In any case, I hope this tutorial was useful, and sorry for the chunk of time lost when I was trying to figure out what I did wrong because I edited the wrong line in a file. But there you go, that's how you make your own ships into Tachyon and import them. Maybe in the future I'll do a much better version of this tutorial, but I wanted to give a one-shot here just so that anybody on the Discord that is really confused on how to do this has at least something to start with. In any case, good luck out there everyone. Take care.